Hey everyone, welcome. Just give everybody a couple more minutes to join and then we'll go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Thank you for joining. It's 2 after. I think we can get started. Niraj, should we go ahead and
Yeah,
fire
sure.
away? All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. Today we are discussing how to streamline your due diligence and fast track fundraising in your life sciences company. Today's a really special one. If you joined our previous webinar, we focused on some of the security features and the technology behind the Government 365 product, the virtual data rooms. Today we're focusing a little bit more on the industry specific side and covering the life sciences because we do have a lot of customers that use our product in that life sciences industry. And we've gotten a lot of feedback and heard a lot of different things that may made us curious about if these things that we've heard from our customers apply to other clients as well. So we'll be discussing those today and showing you how Government 365 is a good fit. All the features, all the new things that are coming as well. So go ahead and get going. So in our agenda today, we'll be doing quick introductions, talk about the challenges within the industry, within the products, and then talking about what Government 365 is, what it does, how to collaborate securely. We'll do a live demo of that. Some of the takeaways that we want you to go away with, if you have just 4 things that you want to remember, those will be the ones, and we'll talk about pricing and next steps and how to get started. Okay. So quick introductions, myself, my name is Gursimran. You can also call me G. I'm a product expert with the application here, joined by Neeraj Tanani, who's our CEO and co-founder. So Neeraj, anything else?
Yeah, I think this is good. Thanks for joining this call. We have some exciting things to share with you all in this call today.
All right. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to talk about the challenges that the life sciences industry faces. These are things that, when we do demos with customers, we do any sort of outreach. These are the things that we hear back from our prospective customers, right? Is what are the challenges that you're facing? And the number one is that there's a lot of high stakes documentation being shared. This is data that has, a lot of proprietary information, some personally identifiable information. So all of this content being shared with potential investors and banks and anybody that's going to be accessing these files, there needs to be a certain level of protection and security and safety in that entire process. So the fact that it is such a high stakes environment makes you a little bit anxious about what product you choose and making sure that you're making the right choice, right? The due diligence process itself can be very rigorous, and sometimes if it's too lengthy because of product deficiencies, or if it's just an inefficient pipeline of your processes, that can slow down deal closures to a great degree. There's also compliance pressures. So obviously regulatory agencies are going to apply HIPAA rules, GDPR rules exist, FDA regulations on how information is shared, and those all lead to potential inefficiencies, data risks, and administrative overload for your internal employees that are doing this work of collecting information, putting into a place where it's easily accessible, sharing it out securely, and making sure that there's enough protection on it so that you can reliably share this information without feeling like you're just kind of giving your information away to anybody. Okay. The tools that are being used, they're very complex, right? So, and there's a huge cost associated with them. So a lot of our customer, we've heard from them is, we love Government 365 because of the fact that you've simplified this complex beast and made it cheap or, inexpensive to own and operate. So we're getting the same features as some really, really complex tools, but it's easier to use. And it's cheaper because we're already paying for Microsoft licensing. We already have some of the technologies deployed within our environments. So what you're doing is basically utilizing those and saving us a lot of money that would be otherwise redundantly spent on things like storage solutions or data protection technologies. Okay. And the last thing that we want to cover is the data security risks themselves. So most products that you're going to see in this realm of virtual data rooms, secure sharing, your content is being hosted in a third-party cloud versus with Government 365, you own your own content, right? We're utilizing existing tools like SharePoint Online that is deployed in your own tenant, and you host your content in your own site and share it out with potential investors. So that risk of your data being stored elsewhere that you're not in control of, that's alleviated completely. And Niraj, you want to cover some of the market product issues?
Yeah, sure. So as we were building out the product, we looked at the common, VDR. VDR is a term that you all are, probably familiar with, stands for virtual data room, that were being used. And we saw that there were certain issues, that our customers and the products had. So number one is high cost and per user fees. Most of these products have very high cost and they charge by the user. Number two, outdated and complicated technology, in terms of UI that they're using. Number three, no real-time collaboration. These are more, upload a document, download a document, where the world has moved to more real-time, online editing. Number five, security and compliance gaps. All of these vendors, and I literally mean all of these vendors store your content outside in a third-party repository, which is their own. But so they have to go through this and you have to rely on that. Next, slow performance and poor accessibility. Depending on where you are at, some of these vendors may have, just US-based data centers. So if you are accessing that content from other places, there may be a problem. So we heard about some performance and accessibility issues, and limited customization and automation. So if you wanted to do some changes, like we had a customer who wanted to do Salesforce integration, and it was hard to do with these companies, with these products. Whereas for our product, you can build those things around if you need them. So, we try to address these issues with Govern 365 by providing flat pricing, unlimited users, using Microsoft 365, which, most companies own today. So why get a third-party repository? Seamless real-time collaboration, because you're using Microsoft 365, you can do online editing, right in the content in there. Data sovereignty, because we use the Microsoft ecosystem. So, the customer, when they purchased it, they probably took care of it already to make sure that the repository was compliant with their requirements. Optimized performance, because Microsoft data centers do a good job in making sure that the content is spread out properly and replicated, so different geographies can have the right level of performance. And then utilizing the Microsoft tools to do custom branding and automated workflows if that level of customization is needed. So those were some of the things that we tried to tackle with the Govern 365 solution. So back to you, G. Yeah. So, the cost of inefficiency, just wanted to kind of highlight, the problem is that, if you are accessing something that you lose investor lose confidence, there is difficulty accessing the content. There is delayed funding due to process inefficiencies. There could be data breaches because a lot of these products didn't have data security. If you had access, you downloaded a document, you forwarded it to somebody else, that person could access that content. There was no, like, what we call digital rights management around your content. And overburdened teams due to administrative overhead, because you had to administer it through some other administrative mechanism rather than just using your Microsoft 365 tool set.
Thanks, Niraj.
Yeah,
So
yeah, go ahead.
covering all of those, right? And talking about how Government 365 addresses the issues with what tools and features we have three main pillars of the application: the secure collaboration, the compliance, and the self-provisioning, right? So each of these have their own um, subcategories of feature, right? So for example, the self-provisioning, if we start on this side, we're able to create new workspaces. These would be new virtual data rooms based on templates. So you could either have, one or two templates that you use because you maybe primarily only have one use case. But the use cases are, numerous. So you could have maybe 5, 6 different templates that you could use rather than having to have data room owners set up each room individually every single time. You just use a template and it's already comes pre-configured with folder structures, branding, logos, color schemes, all of that stuff comes pre-configured with the template, and we set that up for you with you, right? In the customizable form, so that when these workspaces are requested, you can tag a lot of metadata to them, so make it easy to report, make it easy to manage. The secure collaboration piece is really where rubber meets the road with the workspace protection. We have automatic content protection. So this is utilizing Microsoft Purview sensitivity labeling. So as soon as a file gets uploaded into a virtual data room that's powered by Government 365, that file will automatically protected using a sensitivity label depending on what its location is. So if we upload a file into a folder that has granted access to, investor A and B, then you can rest assured that if A and B download that file and send it to somebody else, that somebody else cannot open that file because it's been protected only to provide access to the people that you've chosen to give access to, right? The workspace analytics piece is all about giving you the metrics to track, who's opening files, when they log in, what type of actions they're taking, whether it's a download, whether it's an upload or a access, deletion. All of those things get tracked and presented to the data room owners, and we'll, show you that what that looks like in the live demo. And the collaboration piece really comes into the picture when we have SharePoint Online as the underlying technology, right? So SharePoint is the de facto collaboration tool across the industry. So being able to have real-time collaboration on files, co-authoring, live search, e-discovery, all of those different tools that SharePoint natively comes with are supported by Government 365. We're
And,
basically we're building
and
onto the technology rather than building something separate.
Yep, and to add to it, simplicity was extremely important for us because we heard this constantly from users who were using other virtual data room solutions, that they were bloated with features more than half of the features were not even needed. So we kind of tackled the market to say we're going to create a simple solution, and we'll add to it slowly as we see the demand from a requirements perspective. But then also we have the flexibility with the Microsoft tools that if somebody really wants to make it more complex, they can add those capabilities within that, within the product.
Yeah, and the basis of choosing SharePoint itself, right? It's the fact that it's already so ubiquitous. People have, familiarity with the interface. People have familiarity with the technology. Companies already own it outright, so it made it an easy choice of what platform to choose. Okay. The third piece is our compliance piece. So this is mostly for enterprise customers that have, a large number of data rooms operating. So it makes it easy to manage your workspaces using recertification, some disposition rules that can be set up. It goes back to the point where we talked about staff being overburdened and burnt out by managing workspaces. So this automates all of that and makes sure that you're staying compliant, you're staying, with the rules of governance that you've applied, but in an automated way. Okay. So I guess a quick rundown on what a virtual data room is in the first place, right? So you may or may not use one yet, or maybe you've used it in the past, but essentially what we're trying to do is get multiple people within the company and outside of the company, whether they're investors or lawyers, anybody that needs to access this content. We're trying to get everybody into a single space where they can view data based on a level of permission that you grant, right? And it's commonly used for fundraising and mergers and acquisitions. And there's a lot of permissions that are tied to these workspaces, typically to block copying and forwarding, or other means to exfiltrate, sensitive data. So after this, I think we have a quick poll. So Sujay Arga, please launch a poll, give everybody maybe 30 seconds to answer, and then we'll move on to the live demo. All right, we got the responses coming in. Vast majority of our attendees are actively looking for a solution. So this is great. You guys are in the right spot. Um, Towards the end of the webinar, we'll talk about what to do as far as next steps go, who you can reach out to. We love giving our prospective customers customized demos that are tailored to their specific needs. So definitely looking forward to talking with each of you afterwards. All right, I think we can go ahead and get going. Um, So the Govern 365 virtual data rooms. This is basically going to be the bread and butter of our demo. We're talking about data sovereignty. All of your content is in the Microsoft 365 tenant that you as an organization have and own. User licensing fees. We don't license our product based on how many users you invite, whether it's internal or external. We basically charge by the space itself, right? We have no storage limits because we're not storing any content. It goes back to the data sovereignty point. So since it's all of the data is stored in your own SharePoint environment, you already pay for the space to Microsoft. So we don't need to double charge you for that. And then the security policies that are already in place within your organization are honored because again, this is all living in your own environment. So any sort of policies like multi-factor authentication or any sort of DLP policies, those are still going to be honored in the same way that they are in your existing SharePoint sites. This just had an additional layer of security and features that make it more productive. Okay. So let's go ahead and get through the demo. We'll walk through the directory, we'll do some self-provisioning, and do a data room walkthrough to show you exactly what it looks like and end off with a workspace analytics. All right. So we are in let me just get rid of some of these distractions. We are in the directory through the web browser. This application you can also access through Microsoft Teams. So the Govern 365 app can be downloaded and pinned to your Teams, and on the left side, you click on it, you get the exact same interface, or you can just go to app.govern365.com, log in with your username and password, and you end up at a directory that looks something like this. So each of these cards represents a workspace that you have permissions to access. These could be virtual data rooms that have been created, or they could just be regular SharePoint sites or other Microsoft 365 workspaces that you either work with now or in the future. So it's a full directory, right? There's a number of different features that are available on the card itself that give you information, right? This is a private workspace with external sharing enabled, and it has protection. So this qualifies it to be a virtual data room. A number of different actionable buttons here as well. We have the um, edit workspace functionality where you can choose what kind of external access you want to provide. If there's any sort of domains that you want to whitelist or block, that can all be done from this area as well. Okay. So let's go ahead and click on new workspace request. This is how we're going to get a new data room created. So secure data room. Everything you see on this panel is fully customizable, by the way. So if any sort of terminology you'd want to have it displayed differently, any sort of descriptions you want differently, or even templates themselves, this can be completely customized to your organization's needs. So we're going to create an external data room because we want to share externally with investors. Protection is automatically enabled, and all we really need to do is fill out a form that comes up here. So we talked about templates earlier, being able to choose a default starting point so that you're not doing a bunch of administrative work to set something up. So let's go with the M&A title, and let's choose a title here for us. Something generic here, but you can choose obviously something more specific, a quick description, and select a secondary owner. Now, this is all that's really needed from our side to be able to create a workspace. If there's additional metadata that you want to add on, this form is very customizable as well. If you want to include things like cost center or department or function, anything that would be helpful for your organization to manage and keep track of these workspaces can be very easily added. Okay, and we click submit, and within less than 10 minutes, you typically have a working data room ready to go, and it would look something like this. So this would have a homepage that you can customize fully. So we include a PowerPoint display in the beginning that you can customize to welcome your external guests, provide guidance, anything of that nature, along with our documents library down below. And
And
some
G,
quick links.
yeah, I could just interject. So this is just one of the standard out-of-the-box templates we provide. But
Mhm.
you can have any number of templates. So at during the time of deployment and the initial setup, some of our customers ask us to create different types of templates because
Right.
they see the value of Govern 365 beyond fundraising. So sometimes they will ask us to do mergers and acquisition template. Another time they would ask us to do a auditor template. And sometimes they would ask us to do board meeting template. So we are kind of working towards creating more standard templates, but these are sort of the common use cases that people ask us initially. But you don't have to. We can just use what comes out of the box.
Right. And being in SharePoint currently, this is quote unquote the internal user experience. So your organization users would go into SharePoint here, and they would be able to, upload content, view content, all of the work that they're gonna do normally in SharePoint anyways. But this is a virtual data room that provides that additional layer of protection and security. So, you look at a standard folder structure that can come within, any sort of folder that you create. We have files that are uploaded here that you see the label column is populated with restricted specified persons only. This is a labeling and protection that I talked about earlier, where depending on who you are, these files will either be available for you to access or they will not be available. So as long as you have permissions to be going into this folder and looking at the content, whether online or offline, you're going to be able to open this. If you download a file or if somebody downloads a file and sends it to a colleague of theirs that does not have permissions to this folder in this directory, um, that file will not open for them. They simply can't access it because the MIP protection, the DRM that Nita was talking about earlier, that will block their access. Okay.
And this is one of the key gaps that we see in existing BDR solutions. They don't have this digital rights management concept. Some of them are starting to, but there's still a difference. So here, if you download this document, and if I downloaded it, and let's say if I forwarded it to somebody else who is not part of this container, that person will not be able to open the document. For that person to be able to open the document, the person must be added to this container. Only then they can open it. And there are other things that we can provide, like prevent ability to print, prevent ability to copy paste. Those are some of the additional things that come as a result of this protection. Now, some of the other VDR products are starting to provide it, but that is where the cost increases because they are now adding their own proprietary digital rights management solutions. You already have DRM as part of your Microsoft 365. We're just utilizing it, to make sure we provide you that capability.
Yeah, and to the point where Neers was talking about the different capabilities to block certain features. So that's all regulated by the permissions that are provided, right? So in the manage access feature, like this is the out of the box access manager, right? What we're doing is we're saying the owners have obviously owner access, visitors have viewer access, members have edit access. On top of the standard permissions, we can also have custom groups that are given standard levels of access. We either have edit, we have view and cannot download. So, people from, let's say, State Bank can only view content in the web. They can't download it. The legal team can edit it, right? This read-only group can view it. And what these different permissions really mean is owners have full control over their content. They can view it, they can edit it. Viewers can only see the content with their own eyes on their own machine, right? So they can't print, they can't copy and paste, they can't take screenshots even, they can't share their screen on a call with other people. Anybody that's watching the screen of the presenter will just see a black screen over their screen share because the content is protected and, the tools that are being used to have the calls, whether it's Teams, WebEx, Zoom, things like that, they are able to honor the protections that are on these files so that the content isn't inadvertently or advertently shared out. Okay. So the permissions on each of these folders can be granular. This is another big feature that's requested is, I don't want to grant everybody access to everything. I want to pick and choose which files I want to grant access to which group, right? So you can go from, full document library level permissions where everybody sees everything, go drill into a specific folder for an investor, and then maybe you want to only provide access to the financial and legal documents. You can go into folder like this and go even deeper, as deep as you want, down to the file level. You can grant individual file level access to users, and the event handlers and all the different technology that's sitting and waiting for something to happen will actually go ahead and grant, update the label that is providing protection to grant that additional user access. So that's doing that in real time. So that when permissions are being granted, the security is also being updated behind the scenes with one click. All right, let's go into the users and group section. This is going to be where we modify our permissions. So we do use security-based mail-enabled security groups to create additional roles to access documents here. You see the site groups are the standard groups that come with SharePoint Online, which is the visitors, members, and the owners. And everything else is an additional role group with limited access to content based on wherever you grant it, right? So you can create an unlimited number of these groups and use those to provide access. And the reason we prefer this approach is that you can actually then remove users from these groups, and anywhere that they have access, whether it's a file, a folder, they'll lose that access with that one click instead of having to go to every single area where they have been granted access. And the bigger, more powerful benefit of this is, let's say files have been downloaded in the, let's say 2 weeks. they're sitting on a user's computer and you want to terminate their access because either they're no longer involved in the deal or the NDA is expired for any reason that you don't want them to be able to access those files anymore. As soon as you remove their access from one of these groups, even the downloaded files that they have on their computer will be inaccessible to that user. And that's not a technology that's you know or a feature that's on any other platform that I've seen. So being able to retroactively pull back permissions of files that aren't even in your storage environment, that's powerful. And that's due to the virtue of Microsoft Purview and the sensitivity labeling, being able to always be attached to that content.
So, G, can
Okay.
you just click on one of those visitor group and say show how to add remove?
Sure. Yeah. Let's go here. So we see a panel that flies out. We can click on add new users to individually add members. We can do a bulk import. Basically, this is a process where you download an Excel template, populate it with any number of email addresses that you want to grant access, and you just re-upload it. And that's a bulk import process. Adding new users, if we say Neeraj Tanani, you want to add him, click save.
Yeah. And one of the things that just want to highlight, if you notice that invite to vault, that is an important feature in the product because there are scenarios. So there are different. Often we hear that, hey, does the other party that I'm collaborating with also need Microsoft? And no, they don't need Microsoft. They could be on Google. They could still utilize this product. So that's one question we often hear from potential buyers. Second question that we hear is that, hey, I have a tenant restriction and my people cannot access somebody else's SharePoint. What can you do there? So that is where this a feature called Govern 365 Vault comes into play, where we actually enable them to with a different email ID to make sure that they're able to access the content that is on your SharePoint. So a lot of times banks, when you're interfacing for capital raise with banks, banks have these restrictions. So this came as a result of us working with many people and companies where they ran into this issue. So Henry created this add-on.
Yeah, and that's a good segue because I think that's the next piece. Earlier, I mentioned that SharePoint is a quote unquote internal user interface where anybody that's within the organization should probably go to SharePoint just because it's already, so feature rich. But this is what Vault looks like, right? So the directory looks very similar to what we saw earlier. Wherever you have access or, the logged in user using their Vault ID, um, they'll be provided access to various different areas of a data room. And if we click into one of the data room, oops. So the same data rooms that we have been given access to, there's going to be a limited number of folders that we can access from. I'll show you what that looks like once this loads up. All right, so we were in the M&A. I'm going to go back to SharePoint really quickly just to kind of show you the parallel here. We were in the investor Aviso investments folder, and there's a number of folders here, right? General, financial, legal. And I mentioned that you can grant access to specific folders within a major, top level folder. And that's exactly what we've done for this one user to say, hey, I only want this user to be able to go into the general, legal, operations, intellectual. Maybe I don't want them to be able to look at any sort of financial data. So folder number 2 is not visible in their view, despite it existing, they just don't see it. So being able to grant granular access is really powerful. We go in, we're able to see the same files. We can click on a file, we can open it in the browser, or we can download it, right? So that's kind of the basic functionality of being able to share content. Opening in the browser is browser agnostic, like it'll just open up any, in Chrome or Edge or anything like that. So we'll just have that open right here. And it does come with a watermark typically. So that'll let you know who the user is that's accessing this content and at what time they opened it, right? So I'm logged in with our test account here. It's 3:27 at 10:34 a.m. Pacific time. So just general functionality that's expected is available in the Vault here. Okay. We also have the ability to upload content in the same manner. So SharePoint has the upload features of uploading files and folders. We wanted to mimic that as closely as possible. So you can upload files up to 10 files at a time with a total of 1 GB. So it's fairly, handy. I don't really see many files reaching that size for the type of work that we're doing here, whether it's Excel files, PDFs, and things like that. So the upload functionality works that way. And then, you have the standard file download from either, you can download the entire folder, right? You can click on general and download the entire folder, or go into it and individually download a file by clicking on the download button here. Okay. Let's go back into, I guess, Neeraj, any other comments on Vault?
No, I think the important part here is that Vault is a feature primarily for people who are, interacting with outside parties, and the outside parties are not able to access your SharePoint environment. So that's where Vault comes into picture. So
Yeah.
now, before you move, to this, do you have a screen where the reporting capability is visible?
Yeah, that was my next
Okay. All
segue.
right, sounds good.
Okay. And I did want to mention that Vault is included in all of the licensed versions of Government 365. It's not an additional license or anything. So as a feature, it's part of the pricing that you would pay. Okay. So next we're to go into the report section. So this is a Power BI based report that we surface for data room owners. So the owners would be able to see, all of the content based. Let me make it a little bit larger here. Okay. So we have our date and activity slider that you can choose to filter from. You have different users that you can filter from, and the activities themselves, right? So we can see things like access, deletion, downloads, labeling, modification. So anything that's happening is being tracked, and it's being surfaced both in a visual form in these charts that you can drill into, right? So if you want to see, who's accessing files, you can click on this green section of this pie chart, and it will filter the activity details panel here to give you those line item level details, right? So the date and time of that access, who is that accessing? Obviously the operation is accessed, the name of the file that they were accessing, the URL of that file even. So you can get down to the IP address of that user even. So this is kind of the standard reporting, and obviously it's Power BI. So any sort of additional filtering or any sort of customizations that you would want to do from an organizational perspective, that can be accommodated very quickly.
Yep, and just to add to it, auditing is a very important feature of a VDR. So being able to audit who has done what with your files, and this provides that capability. There are two reports we provide out of the box, but sometimes customers ask us for more reports, and because we are using Power BI, we can just create some more reports for them. And that is the beauty of this custom solution, because you are in the Microsoft ecosystem and you have these tools. We just utilize those tools to surface new features.
Yeah, and you just mentioned about, being able to provide these reports for potential audits and things. So Power BI just has, standard features like exporting. So you can always export all of your data from this, report view into, let's say, a CSV file for a further analysis, or, running pivot tables and things like that. So giving you that power of extensibility.
Yep. And G, do you want to go to one of the VDRs on the Teams interface and just show the thumbnail of how you can see those reports in those cards as well? In the
Yeah, so you mean here?
yes, yep.
Yeah, so we
So
can see the
here, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we can click on the Workspace Analytics button here, and a very similar report comes up on this level as well. Albeit it's a tiny bit different visually, but you're able to see, without having to go into the data room itself, a quick view of everything that's happening. So, you can see from a
This
date range, you can
this is
specify it.
very this is very powerful because you don't have to go to an admin interface to see this. Right? You're on that card, your data room, and you quickly want to see what these, what the access is. You can see here as who has done what. And based on that, if you find something suspicious or if you don't, so you need more data, you can always go to the more advanced version on the browser.
Yeah. And the workspace manager I spoke to briefly, but we'll cover that as well. So you're able to choose your sharing settings, right? If you want to allow new and existing guests to be added to this workspace, only existing guests meaning these guest accounts have been created in your Entra ID already. So, they exist as a guest account. Or you can say, I don't want any external folks to be able to access the content anymore. I only want people to be able to in my organization to be able to view all this. Okay. We also have the domain restrictions. So if you want to have an allow list of domains or a block list of domains, you can do that. And then based on those domains being there, you can choose different levels of permissions that you can give on a domain level. So that's also possible here. Okay. So I think that's it from the demo side. Like I mentioned before, we love talking to, prospective customers about their specific needs and giving, these customized demos. Generally, we'll schedule either 30 minutes to up to an hour with you for free at no cost to understand your use cases and really, show you exactly how your use case could fit with Govern 365. So please do reach out for any further, demonstrations of features or any sort of questions that you might have. We do have a Q&A available in this webinar as well. At the top, there's a Q&A icon. You can click on that and put some questions in, and we can get to those towards the end. Neeraj, anything else before we move on to the new features presentation?
No, I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay. So here again.
All right, so let me just cover some new features that we are working on in the upcoming releases. So there are three main things we are working on. One is the Q&A feature, which allows investors to ask questions and publish frequently asked questions. This is a highly sought after feature that we didn't have in our current release. We're working on it and should be available, in the next short time. Second is the Govern 365 Copilot. As you know that with the rise of AI, there's lots of benefits, and these content here is very document rich, which means that can be very AI rich. So things that we are working on is we're working on two features there. One is the admin AI agent. Second is the user AI agent. The admin AI agent would be able to do common operations like check on the group memberships, permissions. Rather than you doing search, you can ask natural language questions to be able to do certain functions. If you want to add, remove somebody from a visitor group or one of the groups, or if you want to change somebody, those things you can do. The user functions are more semantic search based. So you are in a document and you want to ask more questions around some content in the document. That's one use case we are working on. And the second use case we are working on is where you are able to correlate between documents. So let's say you have a contract and a term sheet, and maybe you have an NDA, you have three documents, and you want to find some correlation or you want to make sure that there is no conflicting language, you can use the AI function for that. And the third use case we are working on is where you can query content within the VDR and the outside world as well, like through ChatGPT or something. So if you need, while you're writing something or you want to, research something, that you can query outside world through ChatGPT as well. And all this is secure within your content repository. So that's the Govern 365 Copilot. And then the third, we are working on some Vault upgrades, in terms of redacting sensitive content, document auto numbering, some vertical industry templates so that, we can get more things available in the product for you. And the product is available on a subscription basis. So when you buy the subscription, we have new features that come up. You automatically, depending on your subscription, you automatically have those features available for you. The next slide. So here's sort of a preview of the Q&A feature, which we are feverishly working on. It allows investors to ask questions and publish frequently ask questions, and it supports general questions and document specific questions. So the flow is, somebody would submit a question, an expert will be assigned to that question, the expert will respond to that question, a review and approval of that response will be available, and the answer then would be delivered. And depending on the outcome, it will be published. So that sort of is the basic, the flow of the Q&A process. Next.
And it's
Yeah,
just a
so
quick
here,
screenshot of what it looks like. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, here's a quick screenshot of what it looks like. As if you notice in the Q&A, your questions and your responses, will be available so that people can basically quickly look at it. And, there are different views of that could be available. And it will also show what's submitted, what's assigned, and what has been answered. So that's how we're going to integrate the Q&A into the product.
Okay. All right, some key takeaways from today's presentation. We want you to be able to use the software you already own and love for the sake of ease of use, for the sake of saving money, for the sake of being able to use the seamless collaboration features of SharePoint itself in a much more secure and much more feature-rich fashion using the Government 365 virtual data rooms. We ensure data sovereignty because all of your data is in your environment. Everything is automatically protected with world-class encryption provided by Microsoft Purview. So you're seeing the theme here. Everything is kind of Microsoft oriented. It works really well together. So there's, as little friction as possible when getting your work done. And then lastly, providing intelligent insights and analytics for your governance, practice to be able to see, who's accessing content, at what level of content they're accessing, and being able to provide reports back to, whether it's management or just being able to see, if you have investors that are more interested, less interested, you can kind of get a good idea of that using all of the insights that we have. Okay.
So let me just touch on the pricing here.
Sure.
Basically, although the product comes in 5 flavors, the first 4 are similar in that that we sell by number of data rooms. So the light edition consists of 1 data room. The data room edition consists of 5, data room plus 15, and standard is unlimited. So typically our customers, if you're a single person, just, an entrepreneur, they typically buy the light edition from us through their fundraising process. And then they kind of, depending on their future needs, they go from there. But typical people, companies start with the 5 data room edition, and then they kind of graduate from there. And the light to standard, they all have the same feature set. So essentially, I think with the exception that there are templates that are available in data room plus, and standard. So that's sort of the only exception for all the feature set. Then
Yeah,
we
and
have.
sorry, I
Mhm.
was just going to say the only reason that exception exists is because you don't really need templates if you only have one, right? Once one is created, it's done.
Yep.
The need for templates goes away.
That's right. So now, enterprise edition is, we'd like to talk more because typically, what happens is that the customers have more use cases than just fundraising. So we'd like to have more discussions around that before quoting a price for that. So that's really sort of the summary of the pricing. There is an initial setup fee, which is, just to get things set up for you. So, for example, if you buy the light edition our pricing is annual. So we sell annual subscriptions, and specifically for this event, if you sign up and you code this event, you will get an extra month off. So instead of a 12-month first year, you'll get a 13-month subscription. So for the light edition, let's say it's for $150, that's about $1,800 per year for that for the light edition, and that's the standard edition, $1,500. That's about $18,000 for that. And basically, customers can have annual subscriptions 1 year. We do offer 3-year subscriptions as well.
And those come with a subsequent discount for a multi-year contract.
Yes.
All right. I think we are coming to a close with the next steps, really just being able to explore the Government 365 website, contact us through the website, through the links that we have available there. If you want a personalized demo, you can also email sales@government365.com, and our wonderful colleague Sujay will get back to you and provide some next steps as far as scheduling a call with you and really finding out what it is that you're looking for. So that's that.
Right.
I think we have a few minutes for any sort of questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
No. Yeah, there's a question that says, can we upgrade from any pricing tier to the next one? That's a very good question. Typically, we answer that while presenting, so good catch on that one. So it's flexible pricing, so you can sign up for any one version. Let me just go back to the pricing tier. Oops, go back to pricing here. So you can sign up for any edition, and then at pretty much any given point during your contract, you can upgrade to a more inclusive version. So if you sign up with the one and say, hey, let me just try out how it works for one, and if you really like it, and say I have more needs, you can always jump up to the data room edition or the data room plus edition or standard, whatever your needs are, and you'll just get prorated for the foreseeable future. So you're not tied into any one specific version for the entire year. It's a good question. Right.
I think a couple of other questions that have come up in the past, although we've emphasized it, that where is the data stored? So I want to emphasize that we do not copy any data. Your data is stored in your, a Microsoft 365 environment. Okay, that's a question that has come up frequently before. Another question that has come up with before is that if I have content in SharePoint, some other repository, do I have to copy it into the virtual data room? Can I create a link to it? Or how can I move content into the virtual data room? So we are working on some features there currently. I don't want to kind of commit to it at the moment, but yes, data will have to be copied in the virtual data room, but we are working on some utilities to help simplify that. So you can easily move content from your other SharePoint sites into the virtual data room repository. So that's the
Right.
second question that we've heard. Another question that we've heard is, that, I want to integrate virtual data rooms with Salesforce. Can you do it? And the answer is absolutely yes. We can do it. We can integrate with Salesforce. So if you're managing, like companies that we work with, sometimes there are organizations that do buy and sell businesses, and they have a lot of businesses, with content. So, and they maintain that in a CRM system. So what we could do is integrate that CRM system with virtual data room, so that connection can be there. Another
Yeah, and
question that
we have some
sorry,
additional questions yours in the chat. I think Alejandro is asking. So there's a question that says, is everything still handled in the Azure Marketplace? So you have that option. You can purchase it through the Azure Marketplace and have it built through that cycle. We support that. And the other way that we typically support it is just through a standard, PO and invoicing order. But it is really up to you how you prefer to be billed for the subscription. And then the other question is, can we convert an existing SharePoint site to a VDR? And the short answer is yes. The longer answer is that we'll do a quick assessment of what that existing site looks like. If it's within the model of what we typically like to work with, if it's a modern site, it's a team site, then we can retroactively convert a SharePoint site into a VDR by deploying all the tools and technologies that are typically part of the provisioning system.
and if we are not able to, it's very easy because we'll just use the tool to create a new VDR, and then we have some migration utilities, using which we can just migrate,
Just
the
shift everything over, and it's
shift
basically
everything over
seamless.
for you. So yes, the
Yeah.
URL would change, but we can migrate that over for you. Uh, Another question, that I've heard is that, hey, do you have an e-signature tool integrated in your product? And we purposely did not integrate an e-signature tool because different companies have different e-signature tools, and we kind of got some pushback on that. So we kept the pricing low by not integrating an e-signature tool. But if you have an e-signature tool, we can absolutely integrate with it. Most of the e-signature tools have, APIs to integrate.
Yeah. All right. I think one more question came in. Can we have different set of permissions per folder? Yes, we covered that when we were doing the demo for the different folders, right? So you can have entire document library be shared with a set of users. You can go into, the subfolder there, further subfolders down to the file level. You can have different levels of permissions if you so choose to. We generally don't recommend going to the file level just because it becomes a little bit more cumbersome to manage, which file is shared with who. So typically, folders are kind of where we recommend to stop at, but you have the ability if you do have the need for it. And those permissions can be managed using that group to say that this group has access to this folder, this folder, this folder. And then when you modify the membership of that group, all those folders have their permissions updated, in the background.
Yep. So just in conclusion here, we want to kind of leave behind the some key points that the Govern 365 is a very easy to use product. It's lightweight. It's built on top of the ecosystem that you have, and and the deployment is actually very simple as well. Once you sign up, it literally takes us 24 to 48 hours max to get you started, and not all of that time is used to do anything. It's just the time period that can be taken. So please take advantage of this offer. We have it available 1 extra month for you. So instead of a 12-month, you can get your first one for 13 months. And would love to work with you all to get you on Govern 365.
Appreciate everybody joining today. Really thank you for taking the time out and joining us into this discussion. So we'll look to see you at the next one. Please keep an eye out in your email and on govern365.com for any further events that come up.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.